What is going on, everybody? Welcome to or back to Ryder's Record Collection. My name is Carl. It has been a hot minute since I've said that. If you fall into the back to camp, it's been a minute since I made a video. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for watching. But a little bit of a quick synopsis or a quick background as to where I've been. I been hitting this year pretty hard so far, traveling. Started a new job, so making videos for YouTube was not high on the priority list when it came to getting acclimated to this new job that I've gotten into and to traveling. So acclimated now, and all the traveling that we had already pegged down for the beginning of this year is all said and done. So back to regularly scheduled content, and glad to be back. So without any further ado, to get back into 2022, first video of the year, I wanted to do the 2022 vinyl tag. I know that there's been a couple different versions of this going around. I'm going to do the one that Dylan at Noble Records did. Pretty easy, but 20 questions, 20 records, and yeah, here we go. So the first prompt is your favorite album purchase in 2021, and that's sort of subjective to me, and it's kind of hard because all the albums I like that I purchased in 2021 I like. Hard to pick a favorite when you've got a bunch of records that you really like, and the only reason you buy them on record is because you really like them. But I guess for this, I'd have to go with the Growlers, Are You In or Out? One of the few Growlers albums that I needed to get, and I was super stoked to find it last year. I did an unboxing or recent arrivals or something where I talked about this a little more in depth, but good lo-fi surf rock. I believe this came out in 2010, maybe 2011. Not totally sure, but really good album. Like I said in that other video, the only problem with it is that it's too short. One of my favorite things about this album, though, is this center label right here. Get it all focused so you can see that. I think that's it's pretty entertaining. Watching that spin around the turntable is very funny to me. So the Growlers, Are You In or Out? Favorite album purchases in 2021. This next question, I think, is set up to get some people in trouble, especially if you have a significant other that is not as into records as you are, but this is the record that you paid the most for in 2021, and this is Iggy Pop, Lust for Life. I was stoked when I walked into the record store and this was on their grail wall. This is, I think, 77, released in the Berlin era for David Bowie and Iggy Pop. Collaborated on this. There's huge Bowie influence on this album, but it's super good. It's got that Lust for Life is the lead single, and The Passenger, I think, are the two most well-known songs on this album. I paid over $50, under $100 for this album, so I'll leave it at that. But most I paid for an album in 2021 is this one, and never before have I seen this out in the wild. So like I said, when I saw it on the Holy Moly wall, I was stoked. So album I paid the most for in 2021. So this next prompt I think is pretty cool. It's an album by an artist that you saw live, or the first person that you saw live, and this is a memory that I will never forget, was seeing Van Halen with Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth singing in Florida. I think I was in middle school. My dad, through his company, got tickets to where the hockey arena is down here where the Panthers play. We had box seats, and I remember just my ears and his ears rang for days. But the first concert I ever went to really had a huge impact on me musically. My dad and I share a lot of musical interests together, so this is actually a very good memory that I have with my dad, and a very good album. This, I think, is Van Halen's shining moment. It's a shame that David Lee Roth left after this, because this album kicks. There's not a bad song on here. I mean, it's just Top Jimmy, 1984, Hot for Teacher. This album, oh man, it's so good. Obviously released in 1984, but first band I ever saw live, Van Halen, blew me away. And the album cover too. I mean, what an iconic album cover. A baby angel smoking a pack of cigarettes. So when I pulled out a bunch of albums for this, I tried to stick with only things that I got last year in 2021 to show off a little bit of what I found. That 1984 I had for a while. Some of these albums I've had for a bit, but for the most part, the majority of this is all stuff that I got last year in 2021. So figured I'd lead in with that because it kind of segues into this next question, and that is a record from a brand new artist or a brand new band that you got in 2021. This came out in 2020, but I didn't actually get the record until 2021 because of pressing issues. This is Oliver Tree and his album This is Oliver Tree and his debut album Ugly is Beautiful, not Life is Beautiful. Ugly is Beautiful, and this kicks. I saw Oliver Tree in concert in 2020 before everything kind of went weird. 2019 before everything kind of went weird, and the beats on this album, it's a hip hop album. He's pushing that line between hip hop and rock. I think he's going more rock. He actually just released his second album not too long ago, but new album for me that I got in 2020, and the reason I went with this instead of a new release that I got in 2020 was this is a debut album. I also got Royal Blood's third album last year, but they're not a new band. They've been around for several years, but Oliver Tree is new to the scene. He's got one EP, this album, just released his second album. Unfortunately, no vinyl pressings of it, but brand new artist for 2021. Next is an album still in the shrink. And speaking of concerts, I'm actually going to see this band a week from today. On April 2nd, I'm going to see the Zombies perform at a small playhouse venue here in Fort Lauderdale, but this is the Zombies Oddities and Extras record store day release from last year, still in the shrink. Actually need to give this a good cleaning and spend a little more time with it because I haven't played it nearly enough. I really enjoy the Zombies. I'm not sure what the singer's name is. I'll put it at the bottom of the screen, but his voice is just phenomenal. So I'm really looking forward to this concert next week. I want to hear him sing Tell Me No and Time of the Season, which I'm sure they'll close out with. But an album in the shrink that I purchased last year, record store day release, Oddities and Extras by the Zombies. You know, and it's kind of funny too, because I'm not a huge fan of leaving stuff in the shrink. Eventually I end up taking it off, but as I pulled the records out for this, I realized that there's a couple records that I still have in the shrink. So there could have been a couple of entries for this, and actually that collection that I got that I did the last video on, there were a lot of stuff still in the shrink for that, but eventually it'll all get taken off. I like the look of a clean album, but yeah, album in the shrink. So next is a concept album, and I didn't want to go with your generic regular concept album, The Wall or something like that, so I'm going with something a little different. This is The Killers. Their album, Sam's Town, second studio album released in 2006. This is, I believe, the 10th anniversary deluxe repress, 2 LPs, 45 RPM. Really nice pressing. Comes with a whole booklet. It's kind of a process to get it all opened up, but it flows like a concept album. Doesn't really tell a story in the same traditional sense that a concept album does, but it works, and I would consider this a concept album. So I'm going to go with Sam's Town by The Killers for concept album prompt. So this next one actually got me really excited. This next prompt is a record you love but haven't given a lot of love to as of late. And when I read this, I immediately thought of this album and this band because I adore this album in particular. This is the Orwell's Terrible Human Beings. This album kicks. It is so good. Also in the shrink, which probably won't be in the shrink for much longer, but it kicks. It is so good. And in preparation for this video, I played this thing about 3 times. This is such a good album, and I don't know why. I kind of go through stages with certain artists and certain bands in my collection where I don't play them enough, and then I really get into them and I play them all the time. The Sex Pistols is another great example. I haven't given that album a lot of love as of late, but I love every song on that album. This album is very similar. I believe this was a 2017 release, and the reason that I got so sucked into this album and this band was I saw this band on tour for this album, for this record, and the concert was just mind-blowing. I saw them in New York City at a festival, and just for the next probably year, this was on heavy rotation all the time, and I've been sleeping on it a lot lately, so this is going to be on heavy rotation again because it kicks good, hard, crunchy, garage rock, just super good. Great guitar sound with this band, and album cover is pretty cool. So, an album I haven't given a lot of love to late, but something that'll change going forward. So this next prompt is a live album, and I had a couple that I could choose from, but I happened to pick this one. I played this one the other day. This is the New Orleans Jazz Festival from 1976. When I first got into records, a friend of mine's mom gave me a whole bunch of records, a lot of Stones, a lot of really good stuff, but she happened to go to college in New Orleans. And she happened to pick this up at a thrift shop when she was there. She was in college in the late 70s, early 80s. But this is a really cool recording, just a random sampling of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival that's still happening today. But it's got all stuff from September 1976, just random, obscure, smaller jazz bands that are filling out the bills here. It's super enjoyable to listen to. It's got a little bit more of an R&B feel than a jazz feel, which kind of threw me off the first couple times I heard it. But overall, a really, really good, enjoyable album. Good Sunday morning coffee music, if you will, and just a classic looking cover. I mean, what a guy, enjoying himself. So this next prompt is an album from a different continent, and this could be potentially one of my favorite finds of last year. Like I said, I love just about every record I find, but this thing, hearing it on vinyl, really blew my mind. This is Pink Floyd's debut album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. I believe this is 67 that this was released, and this is a very, very early repress from Great Britain, printed on the EMI Great Britain label, and this just... there are certain albums that you can listen to and you can stream and you're like, it's okay. Like, I enjoy Pink Floyd. I like the 70s Pink Floyd, the run from from Dark Side of the Moon to Animals. That's really good. Earlier Pink Floyd kind of loses me when they were trying to find their sound. I had streamed this album a few times. I liked a couple of the songs for the most part. I thought it was a little weird, Interstellar Overdrive, stuff like that. Found this at the local record store. Good price, import, I can't complain. Bought it, brought it home, cleaned it, played it, and oh man, it blew my mind. This is an album that you should definitely hear on vinyl because the dimensions of it are so much greater, and it makes me really realize how talented Syd Barrett was. Obviously all of Pink Floyd is, but Syd Barrett, he really had a vision, and it's too bad that the drugs kind of made his mental state deteriorate so much. And I've tried his solo work, and that stuff's kind of hard to get into. It takes a certain kind of caliber to do Syd Barrett solo stuff, and I'm still going to give it a shot, but I don't know if I'll ever get any Syd Barrett solo stuff on vinyl. But really, really good album, that Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Woo! So this next one's kind of fun. I'm going to show two for this next one, and it is show the most out of your comfort zone record you got in 2021. And there are two records that I got in 2021 that are way, way out of my comfort zone. One of them was a record store day release, and that is the Miles Davis Live Evil. And the other one happens to correspond with it, and that is Miles Davis Bitches Brew. So both of these albums, I have been slowly getting into Miles Davis, and I think I told the story about this in one of my recent arrivals from last year. I was on my honeymoon with my wife, and I went to one record store. She was nice enough to let me go record shopping on her honeymoon. Find you a girl who can do that, you'll be great. Went to one record store, and they had an original pressing of Bitches Brew for just more money than I wanted to pay for it. I didn't really know the album that well. I didn't really know if I wanted to enjoy it that much to pay the price. Went to a second record store, and they had it for much cheaper. But I'm like, you know what? I've never seen these before. Bitches Brew Out in the Wild. I've seen it twice. This is an omen, and this is a sign that I should buy it. And then record store day happened, and they released this Live Evil. So both these records are the most out of my comfort zone I've ever gotten, and they both, the vinyl format lends itself well to both these albums. Another album like that Pink Floyd album that just streaming doesn't do it the justice it deserves. There's a lot of texture and a lot of depth to both those albums, specifically Bitches Brew, that you really need to hear on a turntable with a vinyl record, a good setup. So most out of my comfort zone is Miles Davis getting pretty weird, and Miles Davis will make an appearance again on this list. But yeah, Bitches Brew and Live Evil, weird stuff, but I enjoy it. Next prompt is to show a punk or a new wave album. I didn't want to go the same way of showing something really popular and common or something that I've shown before, so I went with The Best of Blondie, which is good new wave. I like this. I got this because I'm not super familiar with Blondie in their discography, and this is a good overview, good snapshot of all their hit singles: Heart of Glass, Dreaming, Tide is High, Call Me, Atomic. There's One Way or Another. These guys have a lot of really, really good singles, and this is a great snapshot of it. Like I said, I didn't want to go the common route and pick like the Sex Pistols or something like that. So no punk, but new wave, Best of Blondie. Starting to get into some fun stuff now. Going to show a jazz album. and this is Walter Wonderly Rainforest. I believe this is a late 60s, another one still in the shrink. You can see that glare from my light. I walked into the record store one Friday after work, and they had this music playing. And I was like, man, this is awesome. I am digging this hard. I'm flipping through records. I'm just bobbing my head. Good, like, organ jazz music, I guess, if you will. Bossa Nova feel to it, whatnot. There's other people in the record store, so I'm like, man, what is this? This is so good. And they're like, oh, well, this is Walter Wonderly. This guy, the guy's actually test playing it, so he's buying it. I'm like, oh, man, this record store, they only do used. It's a mixed bag. Like, man, bummer. If you guys ever find it, if you come across another copy, please hold it for me. A month or two later, I go in and they're like, hey, you were looking for this one album, right? I'm like, yeah, I kind of sort of forgot about it. And they're like, oh, we have it for you. Bam. One of the best jazz finds I think I had last year. I brought this over to a buddy's house, and he was like, this is entertaining stuff. So I'm not sure what year this is. This might be, like I said, early or late 60s, maybe early 70s, but part of that Bossa Nova craze. He's a Brazilian pianist and Brazil's #1 organist. So really good Bossa Nova organ music. So a jazz album. And a little story behind it if you listen. All right, next is a soundtrack. I have 2 soundtracks in my collection, both to movies that I have not seen. One is Easy Rider. I think it's got Dennis Hopper and whatnot in it. That's a pretty good 60s classic rock. That was the first one to really change the whole landscape of soundtracks. But for this, I got to go with one of the best reggae albums of all time, and this is the soundtrack to The Harder They Come. This thing is fantastic. I really love this album. If you're getting into reggae, this is a camera cut out on me there. As I was saying, if you're getting into reggae, great place to start. Super, super good compilation. Jimmy Cliff is the mastermind behind the whole soundtrack, but it's got Johnny Too Bad by the Slickers, Shantytown, Desmond Decker, Toots and the Maytals, Scotty. I mean, just super, super, super good Jamaican reggae on this album. So great soundtrack to a movie I haven't seen, but also a really good reggae album. So I highly recommend Jimmy Cliff, The Harder They Come. Next is an album with no writing on the jacket. And this was hard for me because most of my albums have writing on the jacket except for this one. And if you watched some of my recent arrivals last year, you might know what this is. This was probably one of the craziest finds of last year. This is Miles Davis, A Kind of Blue. This is a 70s pressing, but I have a saxophone. I went to a music store to get my saxophone tuned up. Not sure if you could read that label. Went to the saxophone to get went to the music store to get my saxophone tuned up. He had this grungy, nasty, moldy thing of records, so I'm peeling through it. It just pretty gross. Like I don't know if they left them out in the rain or whatnot, but in there, in a really moldy jacket that I couldn't save was this Miles Davis Kind of Blue, and threw it in here, gave it a good clean. Things in mint condition, and it's something that I've been looking for a while. I have this thing where I don't want to buy represses. I want to try and find something. I think the story behind trying to find it and having it found it is a lot better. So that was one I could have bought a repress of really easily with the jacket that had writing on it. But I held out and I found that, and I will always have the moldy box of records that I remember that by, and I'm stoked. And my saxophone works now, but stoked. This next one my wife's going to love, because this is an album that I was wrong about. I'll eat some humble pie and I'll admit it. I was not impressed with this artist. I was not impressed with the radio singles that she had. I didn't give her much credibility. I'm like, cool, she's pop, she's on the radio, but this is Billie Eilish, and this is Happier Than Ever, that album. And I will say that from a start to finish, this album is a lot deeper than I thought it was going to be. And she's much more vulnerable on this album than I thought she was going to be. And this album is so much more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be. And the prompt is a colored album. I'll get off my soapbox now and show you the color, but this album's super good. And this was the Target exclusive. Got it for my wife for Christmas on a very, very pretty light blue. But if you have not checked this album out and you're at all curious about it, nice light blue, I really recommend it. I was wrong to assume that she was just a pop singles person. There's a lot of depth to her music, and I'm going to go back to her previous albums and give them a good, thorough listening, because this thing really, it hits the turntable more than I thought it would. So, Tawny, you were right. I was wrong. It's a good record, and I won't call her Billie Eilish anymore. Her name is Billie Eilish. She's very talented. My wife's name is Tawny, by the way, so she watches these videos. So this next one, I don't have something for. It's Show Your Pride dig of 2021, and I had so many good finds last year that I can't just pick one. I mean, between the Piper at the Gates of Dawn and the Lust for Life and the Kind of Blue and the Bitches Brew, last year, between buying what I wanted on Discogs and finding outrageous stuff at record stores, I can't pick a favorite one. So I don't have a Pride find of 2021. I'm proud of all my finds from 2021, and it'd be unfair to the runners-up to pick one. So we're getting down to the home stretch now, and this next prompt is a record from a band that you bypassed until recently. And the last video that I put up, I got a collection from a family friend of ours named Bob, and Bob had this album in here. This is Incense and Peppermints by the Strawberry Alarm Clock. I had heard Incense Peppermints before by the Strawberry Alarm Clock. I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's 60s psych, I believe 67. Got this in the collection, cleaned it up, played it, and it blew my mind. This thing is just fire. It is so good. And I don't know how there's not represses upon represses of this, because if you like 60s psych, this is just prime 60s psych. I got a buddy named Trent, and I'm like, dude, you got to check this out. And he called me the next day. He's like, dude, I streamed it. It blew my mind. And I'm like, yeah, good luck trying to find a copy. But man, really good. I've been sleeping on this big time, and now it's hitting the turntable a lot. So an album that I bypassed until recently is Strawberry Alarm Clock, Incense Peppermints. It's super good. One of the best things that came out of that collection that that guy gave me. Next prompt is to show a box set. I believe there was a recent vinyl tag that I did where they asked for a box set, and at the time I didn't have a box set. I got this as a Christmas present sort of to myself last year when I was shopping. I got the Abbey Road 3 LP Anniversary Edition. So this has the remastered version of Abbey Road, which is my favorite Beatles album. It's the album that really got me diving into music. It's one of the first albums I remember actually having a Walkman CD player and sitting there and digesting, playing over and over again. And this has 4 sides of extras on 2 LPs, just outtakes, rooftop sessions, all sorts of stuff. So this is a really good box set. It's got a really good book, nice heavyweight, clean press vinyl, sounds superb. So super stoked to have this box set. Abbey Road. Last two. Number 19 is show your favorite or the coolest cover art or record that you got in 2021. I'm going to go with another record store day release, and something that I only bought because the cover looked so cool. I think I've talked about this before. This is Frankie and the Witch Fingers and their album Telephone Brain. This is just crazy like psych garage rock modern day. I think this is a 2020 album, maybe a 2019, I'm not sure, but actually this upcoming record store day, they are repressing this band's first album, so I will be picking that up. But if you have not heard of these guys, check it out. I'll show you the record too, because it's on, they called it Brain Splatter Matter vinyl, and it's, if I can get it out of here, it's got a cool tie-dye. But between the album art and the record itself, it's hard not to walk past an album like that and not pick it up. So coolest album art of a record I got in 2021. Frankie and the Witch Fingers, Brain Hotel, or Telephone Brain. And last, but certainly not least, bringing in the end, number 20, is a record that you got as VCLT in 2021. And I got to give another shout out to Andy at Next Play Records. Really enjoy his content. Great channel for jazz. But he sent me, kind enough to send me this Dexter Gordon One Flight Up. I mentioned in a couple videos that I was looking for a copy of Miles Davis Kind of Blue. Subsequently went to find it, which you saw. But he sent me this, said this is very much in the same vein as Kind of Blue. And it's very pretty, very good jazz. Really like it. One of pretty much the only Blue Note I have in my collection. So very welcomed edition. Andy, thank you so much. really, really do appreciate it. This gets played quite a bit. I have this thing where on the weekends when I drink coffee, I like to throw on jazz music. So this was a welcomed Saturday, Sunday morning. So that is my 2022 vinyl tag. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please throw it a like. And if you like the channel, please subscribe. Like I said, I'll be back to my regular content soon, putting out videos more steadily. To everyone who subscribed to me in this last couple months that I've kind of taken off, I really do appreciate it. I appreciate all the comments on my last video. It's doing quite well. So if you haven't checked that out, go over there and check that out. I got a record collection from someone and I go through it. But again, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subscribing. If you've subscribed recently or you've been a subscriber for a while, glad to be back. I'll have some more content out for you guys soon. Really looking forward to it. I've got some big things coming and some ideas that I've been working on. So going to be a good year going forward for the channel, and we'll have regular content out soon. So until the next time, I'm Carl. This is Ryder's Record Collection. I hope you enjoyed the 2002 Ryder's Record Collection vinyl tag. And until the next time, have some fun, spin some wax. Cheers.